Please repeat after me. Madchita madgata prana.
Madchitta madgata prana.
Bodhayantah paraspara.
Bodhayantas paraspara.
Kathayantascha mam nitya.
Kathayantascha mam nityam.
Tushyanti charamanti cha.
Dushyanti charamanti cha.
The translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Ho. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Purport. There will be a long purport, so be prepared. Pure devotees, whose characteristics are mentioned here, engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna. Their talks are solely on the transcendental subjects. The symptoms of the pure devotees are described in this verse specifically. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in the glorifying the qualities of pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing Him with other devotees. In the preliminary stage of devotional service, they relish the transcendental pleasure from the service itself. And in the mature stage, they are actually situated in the love of God. Once situated in that transcendental position, they can relish the highest perfection which is exhibited by the Lord in His abode. Lord Chaitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of a living entity. There are innumerable living entities traveling throughout the different planets of the universe, and out of them there are a few who are fortunate enough to meet a pure devotee to get a chance to understand devotional service. This devotional service is just like a seed, and if it is sown in the heart of a living entity, and if he goes on hearing and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, that seed fructifies just as the seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plant of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into the Brahma-Jyoti effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky, also that plant grows more and more until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Goloka Vrindavan, Jai Ho, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately, the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as a plant grows fruits and flowers, that plant of devotional service also produces fruits. And the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. This plant of devotional service is fully described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19. It is explained there that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in the love of God. then he cannot live even for a moment without being in contact with the Supreme Lord, just as a fish cannot live without water. In such a state, the devotee actually attains the transcendental qualities in contact with the Supreme Lord. The Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narrations about the relationship between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees. As stated in Bhagavatam itself, 12:13-18, Srimad Bhagavatam Purnam Amalam Yad Vaishnavam Priyam. Vaishnavanam Priyam. To many Vaishnavas. It's dear, Priyam. In this narration, there is nothing about material activities, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and his devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literatures, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association. Just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association. Interestingly. What about not young boys and girls? If, for example, I'm approaching 40, am I young or not? But what about people in that age? It's like they kind of wake up in the morning in that morgon in Swedish. It's like a short version of good morgon, good morning. But in English, morgon, it's a bit different word. Never mind. A wonderful performance, as mentioned, was dedicated to Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. And in this verse in particular, Krishna says what devotees are doing. Because before he was telling us like, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, so I am the source of everything. So just to give you a bit of a context of what is told in this Chatur Shlok. So Krishna says that I am the source of that, of all that creation. And interestingly that in the first verse of the Chatur Shlok in Bhagavatam, Krishna says that, well, I was before all that creation. And he says that even like this material like creation, its origin, its source is the material nature, which is also me, Krishna says. So it's kind of a bit tough, logical Chatur Shloka. We will not go that much into details unless you ask the question at the end of the lecture. But the interesting here, that's the idea of Krishna called Sarva Karanam. Sarva Karana Karanam. This is the famous verse in Brahma Samhita that very nicely summarizes all that like nature of Krishna. Ishvarah Krishna as Ishvara. Ishvara, Brahma, Krishna, Sachitananda Vigraha. Anadir, Adir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. So it is also said here, Anadir, Adir. So Anadir means without, like origin. So he was before all possible origins. It's hard to imagine for our limited mind. But still, that's the idea of Sarva Karana Karana. And that's something that Krishna says in the previous verse. And then he says that those who understand that, they do what they do. And that's the interesting point here. I'm trying desperately to make that. In these performances, Krishna's pastimes were depicted. And why are Krishna's pastimes that sweet? Because, for example, I also do my pastimes from time to time. And I also spend my childhood with the cows, bulls, and I don't know, goats, sheep, whatever, you name it. But still, why Krishna's pastimes are sweeter than my pastime? And then Shyamdalama think, okay, so Ashoka is envious to Krishna. And you know what? I quite am. So let's call it coming out in the modern terminology. Because in some sense we all are, well, okay, except Mataji Udaranga. We all are, but still we have some good news. And the good news is that that we are conscious about it. We know that we have that envy to Krishna. And that's pretty much why we are here, all of us. Still, I'm not sure what Mataji Udaranga is doing in this material world, but we are happy of having your association. So, in this verse, it is explained, or just in the previous verse, it is explained why devotees are doing what they are doing. And not only what they are doing, but what they are thinking of and what they are feeling. And that's because while having this knowledge about Krishna's sweet pastimes, they know the background, they know the Krishna's nature, if we can call it that way, Krishna's nature, because still Krishna is Sarva Karana Karana. But then Krishna explains what he is. I am the source of everything. Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. And while not knowing that, and still Krishna, while being such wonderful personality, while being the source of all the creation, we are very dependent on very small things in that creation, but he is the cause of all the creation. And just being aware of that extent, we see those sweet pastimes Krishna performs with his devotees. That his personality, his sweetness, is in his loving nature. While being so big, he cherishes the loving relationship with his devotees. And thus, devotees, Krishna actually explains here the nature of pure devotees. Madchita, Madgata Prana. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Madgata Prana means that Krishna, or the pastimes about Krishna, is the life and soul of devotees. That basically means that Krishna's pastimes is something that nourishes the pure devotee, the soul of pure devotee. That's their food that they live on. And thus Prabhupada is saying in that purport that a pure devotee cannot live even a moment without the Krishna Katha, without cherishing the pastimes, without chanting the holy names. So that's why it said Bodhayantah Parasparam. Bodhayantakam. Bodhaka means the preacher. So they preach to one another, to themselves. I preach to Prema Mai preaches to me. And that's how devotional service functions. And then Kadhayantas Chamam Nitya, they always engaged in the sweet discussion of Krishna's pastimes. And thus they achieve, or not like achieve, but pretty much feel Tushyanticha, Ramanticha. So they feel this in the natural, or like the genuine peace, Tushyanticha and Ramanticha. They feel what? They feel happiness. Very deep, very sweet, and also very genuine happiness. So, Prabhupada says here in the purport, their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna. Cannot be diverted. The other day, I saw some reels in Instagram, and there was some filmmaker was filming some marriage ceremony, and you know, chicken, they are known for being very fixed, and if you move their bodies, so their head and their glance is fixed at the particular point like this. So you move the body like, and then the head still stays on the same place, and the glance at some point, if they are focused at some particular place. So pure devotees are like this chicken, but take that comparison in proper context. Because if we diverse, we say like, oh, there is Kanel Bulle, and then I turned to this advertisement like this, and our head also is turned to that Kanel Bulle. So pure devotees of Krishna are not like that. Then the question might arise, okay, so Krishna is explaining here to us the practice, the lifestyle of a pure devotee. But the question is, what is our practice to achieve that level, that practice? The answer is that, well, pretty much the same. So, as mentioned, that devotees' lifestyle is Krishna Katha, they are cherishing. And it's not only like speaking about Krishna, it's also having the whole lifestyle about Krishna, like having these dance performances, drama performances about Krishna's pastimes. It's all about Madchita Madgata Prana, Bodhayantah Parastak Param, and Kanthayantas Chamam Nitya. All these aspects. But then everything starts from the seed. As Prabhupada mentions here, 2 stages of a devotional service. So, as I said, pretty much the same. So that's also what is said here, that Prabhupada says, like, the preliminary stage of devotional service, they relish the transcendental pleasure of the service itself. And in the mature stage, they are actually situated in the love of God. So, while the verse might indicate the second stage, so the practice is still the same. So we cherish the very service, the pleasure we get from the service. And then gradually that plant of bhakti sprouts and grows and grows and grows until it reaches first Brahmajyoti and then Golok Vrindavan. But then, as Lord Chaitanya mentions here, that everything starts from a seed. He gives that comparison of a plant that first starts from a seed. And that's interesting how it works. Because in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 11th chapter, there is not very famous, but an important verse that is explaining how this process works. It says, Yadrichhaya mat kathado, chata shradha shtu yahpuman, nanir vino natisat sakto, bhakti yogas yasidhita. So it's interesting. Yadrichhaya, that's how the Shraddha appears in our heart. The very word Yadrichhaya explains. And Yadrichhaya means somehow or other. It's Krishna saying that. Even though Jata Shraddhas tu Yahpaman, so in this way, Yadrichhaya mat kathado, to my to Katha, to speeches about me, Jata Shraddha, the Shraddha arises, takes birth. But there it should be the prepared soil for that Shraddha to sprout. And that soil is explained in the third line. Na nirvino nati sakto. So nanirvino means the person should be not too much detached, but nati sakto, there is the word asakti. Sakto means like attached. So it should be neither too attached nor too detached. Because usually in this material world our life looks like, like from one extreme to another extreme, and like this. But then at some point it becomes like this, like this, like this, like this, and then not too much here, not too much here, and probably somewhere at this point, that is the proper soil where the bhakti should and is able to sprout. And how does that happen in the heart of a devotee? Or not yet a devotee, even though we know that devotion is dormant in our heart, but I mean how one actually joins all that kind of lifestyle we are having here. From all that everything comes from some kind of a sukriti, but not ordinary sukriti. I just donated for this, donated for that, I did that good thing, I just saved the kitten, like without something. That's all good things, and that might lead you to heaven, the planets, ultimately, if you are doing a lot of these good deeds. But it's still something about the material sukriti. But here we are speaking about bhakti sukriti. Thus, devotees should come out more and give other people opportunity to listen to the holy name and have an opportunity looking at the devotees, appreciating in some way devotees, maybe purchasing Krishna's books, honoring prasadam. If they're having these opportunities, we shouldn't expect that they will take a bowl of some sweet prasadam and go right away, go Ranga, and just surrender and straight back home, back to God. Not that way, but at least it prepares that soil. Probably that sukriti makes that person, while swinging in these emotional swings, ultimately come to that platform where they will become receptive for that message. Because first they hear that message, it come here, but then when the soil is prepared, then it comes here and it gets stuck. And when it's getting stuck, what is happening? The person starts immediately chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Probably not. But what is happening is that the person starts asking questions. Like, what am I doing here? Who am I? Honestly. And these questions lead him not to, oh, okay, so who am I? Yeah, I'm an engineer. Okay, now I remember who I am. I mean, these are the genuine, the deep questions that person starts asking. And these questions lead that person ultimately to the essence and to the source of knowledge that actually is able to answer these questions in a genuine way. And in this way, the devotional service starts for the person. And then comes the second stage when we actually start performing it in various ways. So Prabhupada says in that purport, like gradually as a plant grows, fruits and flowers, and plant of devotional service also produces fruits. And the water process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. So chanting and hearing. So we are chanting Krishna's pastimes, we are chanting his beautiful holy names. Thus, in another series of famous verses from Bhagavatam, it is said, Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavyash Kirtitavyash Cha Smartavyash Chechato Bhayam. Let us repeat that verse together. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavyash Kirtitavyash Cha Smartavyash Chechato Bhaya. Therefore, O Bharata, Shukadeva Goswami is explaining to Maharaj Parikshit the essence. So he explains the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in a very, very short way about how the real Grihasthas live, Grihamedhas live, and how one ultimately should remember Krishna. And thus, he said, in order to achieve that, remembering Krishna at the end of life, Ante Narayana Smriti, he said that Tasmat Bharata Sarvata Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari, about Bhagavan Shri Krishna, Ishvara. One should Shrotavyash, listen about Krishna, hearing the pastimes, Kirtitavyash, chanting them, and Smartavyash, Chechatopayam. One should remember. And all these processes are done within the Sankirtan Yagya we are performing together. Sankirtan means the kirtan which we are performing together. Kirtan is a traditional, we can call it musical performance because it is, but it has its deep spiritual meaning. It has its external form. We know that usually kirtan looks as follows, that the kirtan leader starts and shows the melody, the raga, in which one chants the holy name. And then the audience repeats. And then the musical instruments are following the karatas, mridanga, the harmonium or some other instruments which are assisting that process, because the process is to absorb our consciousness into that process, into the meaning, into the mood in which we glorify the holy name, which is not different from Krishna himself. In this way, some devotees might come to Kirtan and take randomly kartals and start playing, thinking that, okay, I'm in this way serving Krishna. And maybe it is a way of Krishna's service. But Sankirtan means we do it together, and we have some form of synergy. We never see the kirtan that, some kirtan leader sits here and starts singing Hare Krishna melody in one melody, then another devotee comes and thinks he is a leader, and then he sits in that corner and starts singing that melody, and then third one, fourth, and then we have 25, 30 people singing their own melody, so it will not be unified. It will be something different. It will be cacophony that will be absolutely generally. But for their own singing, they will be listening their own singing, and that will be more like a japa chanting. Japa is also part of our process, but kirtan is a bit different. It's something that we do together. And that's why musical instruments, their role is to direct, to create the melody, create some kind of a mood that we can easily relate to and tune our heart into. And with that mood, we dress the deity of the holy name. And if someone still is willing to offer their service as a kartal player, we, as those who oftentimes play a role of kirtan leaders, are very open for accepting these people. We want more people to be engaged in these services. But the person should be open for learning. It doesn't mean that one should become super expert, but learning means some basic things that one should learn in order to go from the stage of being a source of irritation to a helper. That the helper is essential in kirtan. And so if one wants to play kartals, it's not because I just want to do it. If one wants to lead a kirtan, it's not just because I want to lead a kirtan. It's because we come here in order to serve the holy name, to serve Krishna, to cherish. And in that mood, everyone is welcome. That's when we proceed with that beautiful process. And while trying to make it more and more beautiful and to involve more and more people in that process, to involve more and more sincerity of these people into that process, we'll have the plant of bhakti growing higher and higher and higher until it reaches Goloka Vrindavan. That will be the next stage we all want to achieve, and we will do it all together. But at the same time, we know that, okay, so we do this process, but we have, at the same time, we have all those limitations and principles. And we also saying that we are supposed to be part of a congregation. Yeah, by the way, when I mentioned the Yadrichhaya, Lord Chaitanya also is mentioning that verse in Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Chaitanya. And then he explains that this Yadrichha, not like explains, his background before. He says, Sadhu Sangi Krishna Bhaktya Shraddhayati Hoy. He said, by associating with a devotee, one awakens his faith and devotional service to Krishna. So he comments on that way that this Yadrichaya, this somehow or other, basically means that one faces a devotee, one meets a devotee, one gets an association of devotee. And what happens next? One joins the devotional society. And devotional society might pretty much look like a religious organization. And one might think like, all right, that's a religious organization, there might be some politics, some management, this and that, I don't want to be involved in that, I just want to think independently. And that's basically the basis. And ideally, that's not something that our movement wants from people, to just give up your own intelligence, your own thinking process, and just do whatever you are told to do. That's not the point. The point that you should engage your intelligence in achieving, in honestly achieving something very valuable in your life. Something very important. It's more like why we need sadhu sangha, the association. I'll give you an example. When I go to gym, I have some buddies in the gym which can assist me there, let me help me with this and that, and it kind of also inspires you to do it regularly. But when you miss some time, for example, you go somewhere to some kirtan mela, or you're sick for a week or something, and then you're missing some part, and then you come to the gym after that, when you're ready to go there again, and the body say, oh, I haven't seen you for a while. And that also inspires you, because they notice that you haven't been, and then you appear again. And that inspires you to do more. And in Krishna consciousness, it's the same. That devotional society inspires you to do something which demands some kind of investment from you, endeavor. That you actually have to stand up and do something, be it physical, intellectual, some activity, which is different from them scrolling in the Instagram or just lying on the sofa and watching the TV series. And we know that this investment will lead us to something valuable. And then devotional society might help you with do it properly, and at least just do it regularly, stably. And principles which are following, they might have even some sense. For example, good for health, doing that is good for health, not doing that is even better for your health. And also, if you are not doing that, it also doesn't spoil your consciousness. But in the end of the day, the ultimate reason for why we are doing that is to improve our chanting. Because if we are not doing some contaminated things, that helps us to absorb into the chanting more. And if you value chanting of holy names, that will be easier for us, while we understand why we are doing this, to give up something that doesn't help us to chant properly. Which doesn't mean that we should give up everything at the same time. That's not the point. The point is that we still have our intelligence, which we should apply. Okay, so that's me at this point. These problems I have, these problems I don't have. how do I proceed further to this goal from that point? And that's my responsibility. My intelligence, I apply it, and my responsibility for the consequences. I'll give you another example. A person might come to the temple, sell all his belongings, the flats, everything, apartment, and give all the money to the temple. Yeah. So for that example, I might be imprisoned after that. But anyway, after a while, you find that person sitting in the middle of Drottninggatan Street, and you might approach that person and ask them, why are you sitting here? Oh, I just sold everything, and in such an angry, disappointed way, sold everything, I gave all the money to the temple, and Krishna didn't give me money back. But thing is that it doesn't work that way. Because one might think like, okay, it's kind of good bargain that I sell everything, I give it to the temple, and devotees will be glad, will be glorifying. Oh, such a nice person gave so many millions of crowns to donate it to the temple. Such a nice, this Prabhu Ki Jai, this Prabhu Ki Jai. But it somehow or other doesn't happen that way. But Krishna gives everything back, and one might, in this way, think that Krishna might push Krishna to do something, do favor for me. So kind of good favor here, good bargain. But Krishna, you cannot treat Krishna that way. So the process should be gradual. But the ultimate point is to help us chanting the holy names properly, or better, at least. So, we have spoken a bit about how pure devotees live, how they feel when they live this Hare Krishna lifestyle, or devotee lifestyle, Vaishnava lifestyle, and some way how people achieve that level. That one shouldn't force that, it will come naturally when we help one another doing it all together. Are there any questions? Yes?
So you said we have to always be thinking about Krishna, glorifying. So I have to cook food. So that's an activity, right? So I need food for my stomach. So what should be my consciousness? So I cannot avoid cooking because I need food for energy. So how do we deal with everyday life, like practical example, cooking?
Very good question. And I'll give a semi-related example, because when I also was talking to one devotee about, actually he was pushing me like, why are you saying that you should play this, karatals like this? I can play whatever I want, just it's my bhava, like how I express myself, I just want to play, I play. And I gave him an example of a kitchen. You mentioned the food, so I also mentioned the food example. That in the kitchen, especially in the Krishna consciousness kitchen, you cook for Krishna. And you cook ultimately that you know that the remnants, which were called prasadam, will be offered to the devotees. And we want devotees to relish that prasadam. As the first stage, Prabhupada is explaining that we relish the process. And that's even the relishing the process may have various levels, and there is various levels of conditioning. And first we are quite materially conditioned. And if, for example, a person comes into the kitchen and thinks, okay, I want to serve Krishna here, so I just want to cook something, and then to cook something sweet, and then takes whatever can, so be it salt, be it like lemon acid, or just puts there and just salt here and whatever. Wait, that's my bhav, he says, or she says, whatever they say. And ultimately we will have something not super tasty. And the point is that we should learn how to do it properly in order for people to be able to cherish, to enjoy the process of taking prasadam, for example. And this is the point that we do need the food in order to maintain our body. But then we can spiritualize that process by offering the food first to Krishna. It becomes prasadam, and we are taking prasadam. And thus we purify our consciousness. That's a part of spiritual life. That's the difference when I also mentioned the verses spoken by Shukadeva Goswami when he speaks about Grihamedha, Grihastha, indirectly. Not about the prasadam itself, but that's also a part that a person who lives a material life, we should maintain our body. That's a good thing. But then we connect that to why we are doing that. We know that in the first verse of Isha Upanishad, it is said that everything is given us to Krishna, by Krishna, and then we have to engage that properly. We understand that the body is what? Is an instrument. And thus we are careful to that. And also we are not that body, but at some point we are. We still quite identify ourselves. But still we need to spiritualize ourselves, and in order for us to disidentify, which is a gradual process, we should take prasadam. And probably not a lot of prasadam at once, but it depends. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, that person, when I mentioned that example about the kitchen, he said, like, but kirtan is spiritual. I said, like, you know what? Wait a minute, but does cooking for Krishna, is it like not spiritual in any way? Where do you draw the line between spiritual and not spiritual? So the idea of kirtan is to serve the holy name. In kitchen we serve Krishna by cooking. In kirtan we serve by dressing in a beautiful melody, rhythm, our mood, meditation with our love. Anyway, I'll stop here. Thank you very much for listening. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Gaura Premananda.